Om Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Aviravirmayeti Rudrayatte Dakshinam Mukham Tenamam Pahi Nityam. May the Divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the Divine Consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. So we'll continue where we stopped last time. It's good to remember that the key verse in this section that we are studying is that about karma and akarma. What is really karma and what is not karma? And that is what the verse 18 pointed out, that the person who is able to see activity where there is activity, even if it feels like inactivity, and the opposite, is a truly intelligent person. And in that context, we saw that although karma is what comes into discussion more often, the key thing in a karma is actually the doer, the agent of action. Because if the doer is present, then doing is possible. If the doer is absent, no doing is possible. And the example, of course, that we have often seen, in deep sleep, we don't have the sense of I. The ego is almost asleep, non-functional, and therefore no activity is possible in deep sleep. But activity is possible in dream as well as in waking state, because there is a semblance of I. In waking state, of course, but even in my dream state, the dream me, the person I identify as me in the dream, goes and does things with the sense of I. So the sense of I is very important. So what it means is this: if I decide to not do anything, not do any work, but if that decision is made by this ego, then it is still work. But if I am doing something without the sense, without the ego, then it is not work. And the example clear is the Atman. I feel, I am saying, I am doing, all of the time we say, but the real I is the Atman, and the Atman has no ego. So the Atman is not doing anything. And therefore, what seems like activity may not be an activity. What feels like inactivity may not be an inactivity. And that's why seeing things exactly as they are, the verse 18 pointed out, is the characteristic of the enlightened being. And so then the subsequent verses all show how does such a person who is intelligent, and not intelligent simply in terms of scholarship, one who is able to see things clearly, how does such a person be? And look at verse 19. The person whose activities are free from desire and intention, and whose actions are burnt by the fire of knowledge, is called wise by the sages. In other words, if you and I want to reach that stage of being enlightened, then we should make sure that our activities are free from desire and intention, and our actions are burnt by the fire of knowledge. Similarly, look at the verse 20. Giving up the desire for fruits of work, remaining ever content, depending on nothing, a person does not do anything even when seemingly doing work. So this is that same one verse, that 18th verse is being now seeing how it manifests in the life of an enlightened being. Verse 21. Living without expectations, the body and mind controlled, and all possessions relinquished, such a person does not suffer evil consequences through mere physical activity. Now that raises a question. How can living without expectation, living without any possessions, how can such a person survive? How can you and I survive? if we live without expectation, if we live without any sense of ownership, is it possible for any of us to survive in this world? And that answer is given in verse 22. That's what we will begin today. Yadricha labha santushto dvandvatito vimatsaraha samasiddha vasiddhau kritva pina nibadhyate. Even doing work does not bind a person who is content with what comes without effort and who is unaffected by the pairs of opposites, free from envy and even-minded in success and failure. So yes, it is possible for us to live without expectation, without any sense of ownership, provided we follow all these requirements. When will work or karma not bind me? That is, when I am content with what comes without effort. And that is the word here. Yadricha labha santushtaha. And that's not easy. Now, does that mean I shouldn't be doing anything? That's not what is intended. What is intended is, at different stages in life, all of us have different sets of duties, different sets of responsibilities. Of course, we have to carry out our duties as best we can. Always strive to do what is right, strive to do what is good. Having done that, then say, I'm now content with what comes. By without effort, it means, of course, I have made effort, but I have not made that effort in order to get an intended result. Whatever effort I have done is an effort only to do what is right, effort to do what is good, an effort to carry out my duties as best I can in the spirit of Karma Yoga. That's where the effort is there. But what happens is, generally what we tend to do is, our effort in putting the work is to get a specific result. Then, of course, the two possibilities are either we get that result or we don't get that result. But that's what binds us in karma. Doing work and getting caught up in the fruits of work. So when the Gita says work without attachment to fruits means, first part is work. Just because I don't care for fruits, so I'm not going to do any work. And as we saw, if we say I'm not going to do any work, that is still work because I'm saying it out of ego. So even if we want, we cannot stop working. And since there is no choice between working and not working, and I've explained before in what a broad sense I'm using the word work, the only choice we have, really two choices if you like. One is, I have to work whether I like it or not. I cannot stop. Then the first choice is, should I be doing something what is right or what is not right? Or what is good or what is not good? That option we have. And the second option we have is, whatever way I choose, but especially if I choose that I'm going to do what is right or I'm going to do what is good, do I want to do it with desire for its results, or just doing good because it is good to do good, or doing good because I'm offering to the divine? That is the spirit of yoga. If I'm able to do that, then that work will not bind me. That is what it also shows, is some amount of faith and confidence. And confidence in, we speak about justice. And yes, sometime in short term, we might see that we might even begin to wonder whether there is any such thing as justice in this world. If you say, oh, within the last 6 months or a year, things are happening, there is no justice. But we are looking through a very small window. And when we think about karma and things like that, it sees it on a much larger canvas. And so if we truly believe that in this large canvas, sometimes not even limited to this life from between birth and death, that there is such a thing as justice. If we believe that if I deserve something, if I truly deserve something, then there is no power in the world that can stop me from getting it. And if I don't deserve something, then even if I move heaven and earth, it still won't come. If we believe that, then the only right course is I'm going to do what is right, I'm going to do what is good, and I believe that God exists, that God is seeing me even if I'm not seeing God. God knows what is good for me. And just like a loving parent will give what is good for the child, whatever God gives, whether or not I immediately recognize it or not, I know it is good for me. Normally, when good things happen to us, we don't even question it. Of course, it's good for me. But sometimes when not so pleasant things happen, we say, what good is going to be achieved by that? In fact, that was the question Nachiketa asks in the Kathopanishad. You know the story, we have seen that before, how this young little boy was pained to see his father was not observing all the rules of that particular sacrifice. And so he wasn't, he was supposed to donate or give in charity everything that is valuable to him. And the father was not really doing that, giving away all worthless things. So this little boy just goes and asks his father, kind of in a very indirect way, to suggest that you're not really doing what you should be doing. So he says, who are you going to give me? And the father, it's sometimes parents, if children try to act too smart beyond their age, it can be irritating to the parents. So the father was annoyed. And so the father was very angry and he just said, I give you to death. Now this boy took his the words of his father seriously. He said, and then this is the question he asked. He said, why is my father sending me away to death? What good will be achieved by me going to death? But then, as we saw in retrospect, good was achieved. Because his father sent him to death, there is all this whole Kathopanishad, whole the teaching that Yama gave. And at the end of the book, it says Nachiketa became enlightened. So apparently now of course, there is no indication that father knew what was going to happen. What his father had said was really in anger and irritation. But it did lead to, when Nachiketa asked himself, what good will it be done by me being sent to death? A real good was done. If we remember this story, then even if something not pleasant things happen to us, something which we are not happy about, remember Nachiketa. Something really wonderful might come. Although when we are passing through a difficult phase in life, that's not fun. It's painful. But in retrospect, sometimes when we look back, then we say, oh, if that had not happened, this wouldn't have happened. So sometimes we are immediately not able to often recognize whether something is good or bad. Sometimes something might appear to be good, like who doesn't like chocolate or who doesn't like sweets? And of course, it might seem to be immediately good, but if I had too much of it, more than what my body can absorb, then it's bad. Although it's very tasty, its ultimate result may not be good for us. And so, to immediately jump to any conclusion whether something is good or bad might not always be accurate. So, as they say, a tree is known by the fruit it produces. So, sometimes, whatever is happening in life, before immediately jumping to conclusions, just wait and watch and see how it affects us in a shorter and longer term. So that is what is meant here. Even doing work does not bind the person who is content with what comes without effort. Yadrucha labha santushta, that's the Sanskrit word in the text. Who is unaffected by the pairs of opposites. That is dvandva titaha. We have seen that in the relative world, everything is, these two opposite poles exist for everything. If there is heat, there is cold. If there is summer, there is winter. If there is light, there is darkness. And we get affected by it. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't need proper clothing when winter comes or when summer comes. Of course, we need. But to go on agonizing over it, to go on complaining about it all the time, that doesn't help. So, yes, as seasons change, as situations change, we have to do what is necessary. But if we get affected by that beyond a reasonable limit, then we know that when we are affected by anything beyond a reasonable limit, we are not able to do the things we are supposed to be doing. And therefore, as far as possible, we need to be strong enough to take in our stride all the upheavals that are occurring, whether it's in the weather or climate or the change of government or the different places we visit and so on. All these things will be happening all the time, sometimes pleasant, sometimes unpleasant. If we are affected by these things, then we are not going to be able to focus our attention on where our attention should go. And in spiritual life, that means our spiritual ideal. It means for a devotee, that means, do I remember God or I'm just annoyed by what's happening around me? That's the question. And that's what is meant here by saying, unaffected by the pairs of opposites, free from envy. The word is vimatsaraha. Matsara is envy. The envy can be, it just happens, and sometimes it's very subtle. We ourselves may not be aware of it. That those who have things we wished we had, and it's kind of a reaction we have inside. Why is that person having it? Why I am not having it? Instead of that person, I should have had it. So jealousy, envy, these negativities in the heart, they actually kind of constrict our heart. And then that makes even success in prayer and meditation very difficult if these negativities are there. So we must be careful to make sure that, again, if we remember that it's all about deserving, that what is my due. Every one of us has a certain due in life, and whatever is my due will come to me no matter what. And if it is not my due, then it will not come to me. Just having this conviction and faith saves us from so much trouble. And I think that's essentially where this envy comes in. And even-minded in success and failure. This is a very specific way of the pairs of opposites. Success and failure is another pair of opposite. And that doesn't mean it's bad to be happy when there is success. It's a very natural reaction to be happy. Or doesn't mean that I shouldn't be sad if things don't go the way they should. Again, it's a very natural reaction. A wall never feels happy or miserable, but a wall is a wall. A wall, so far as we know, never get enlightened. It must be laughing if it's really enlightened already. But so we are not like these inanimate objects. We are human beings. There is not a stone here. There is a heart, and so of course there's some sukha dukkha will happen, which is natural. But if we get carried away by either of these, by my joy or my sorrow, then I'm not going to be able to pay attention to what needs my attention. So yes, it's fine to be happy, it's fine to be sad. But all the time, both of these should be under my control. And we might say, well, I can understand having my sorrow under my control, but why should I control my joy? Why can I not express myself, allow my joy to go fully? The problem is that the mechanism of control within us, there is no separate mechanism for joy and a separate mechanism for sorrow. It's the same mechanism. And so if I'm not able to control my joy, I won't be able to control my sorrow. So it's fine to be happy or miserable, but keep them under your control. By under control, I simply mean that it should not deviate me, it should not take me away from the things in life that need my focus, need my attention. That's the important thing. If I'm able to do that, then even doing work will not bind me. So doing work, there is also one other important thing to be kept in mind. We see all these great ones whom we recognize as people who are enlightened. You think of the Buddha or Jesus, think about Ramakrishna, think about Shankara, all these great ones who are universally recognized as truly enlightened beings. We see them doing a lot of work. Swami Vivekananda didn't even reach 40. He passed away a few months after when he was 39. And he did so much more than any of us can do even in 10 lifetimes. So then the question is, how did they do all this work? So what does doing work mean? And so there is an objective and a subjective element to this. That is, when I say that, well, Vivekananda did so much work, I'm giving an objective assessment, but saying that I have seen him do work. Of course, none of us have seen him with these eyes. We read about it in books and we are able to visualize, or even, so it's an observer's assessment when we see them doing things, well, they're doing work. The important question here is the subjective assessment. When Vivekananda did all the things that he did, was he seeing that he was doing it? If his eye was rooted in the Atman, then he may have been as much an observer of what got done through his body and mind as you and I are doing it. And so things may not always be the way we see it from outside and the way that they are inside. And in fact, there is a proverb in one of the Indian languages, and similar proverbs probably exist in other languages as well, which means that things don't always seem to be what they are, and that is why people get fooled. Or what in normally we say, all that glitters is not gold. And therefore, from outside, if something looks like work, that may not be the perception of one who is actually being engaged in that activity, or who we see or who we feel is engaged in that activity. So doing work, we have to understand from within and without. It's like some people are good at hiding their emotions and feelings. So sometimes outwardly may be very cheerful and smiling. Now what most people say, this is such a happy person. But maybe that person is going through an extremely difficult time. Maybe that person is extremely miserable inside, but is able to keep the inner feelings inside and show a different persona outside. So what is the reality here? All the people around will say, this is a very happy person. But that person inside is like, no, I'm miserable. So what is which one is real? And all that we can say is, from the perspective of the person, that is the reality. From the perspective of the outsiders, there's the other reality. And exactly the same thing with regard to work. Did Buddha work? From our perspective, he did a lot of work. But what is from Buddha's perspective? Was he doing work or not? That's what we need to see. So look at verse 23. Gata sangasya muktasya jnanavasthita chetasaha yajnaya acharatav karma samagram praviliyate. The entire karma is dissolved for one who is free from attachment, whose mind is immersed in knowledge, and who does work as yajna. praviliyate is dissolved. So what does karma being dissolved means? It simply means it is destroyed or it vanishes. And why does it vanish? Because the doer is absent. So when I do something without the sense of doership, then I'm doing it, but I'm not doing it. It says one who is free from attachment. Attachment to what? Attachment to objects, of course, but primarily attachment to one's own ego. Because only when I have attachment to this body and mind and see this body and mind as me, then whatever this body and mind is doing, I will say I am doing. Now, for instance, the example I want to give, I lift this up and say, oh, I am now lifting this up. Who is lifting this up? Not the Atman, it is this body that is lifting it up. So when I say I'm lifting it up, I'm really attached to this body, and whatever this body does, I'm saying I am doing it. That is attachment. So we are not just attachment to the body, we are attached to a specific body. If somebody else lifts something, I won't say I'm lifting it. And so that is what attachment means. And that attachment is what produces the sense of I with regard to the body, with regard to the mind. As long as that is present, then my sense of being a doer, agent of action is present. As long as that is present, that I am doing something, then I am expecting a return for it. And I am expecting a return, that return either through success or failure is going to bring me joy or sorrow. And either way, whether it's joy or sorrow, I'm getting caught up in this karma cycle. And if I get into the karma cycle, which will, again, you know the chain, how it functions, that is what is the result for me coming back again and again to this transmigratory cycle, the samsara. Birth, death, and so on. And it can go on and on. It's a circle. It has no beginning, no end. Someone was saying some time back that this birth and death coming again and again is not a problem for me. The only problem is to say, again I have to go to school and do all those assignments. That's why I don't want to come back again. Whatever works, if whatever is something that produces this intense vairagya, detachment, good. So, who is free from attachment, whose mind is immersed in knowledge of one's true nature as the Atman. But also, if I know I am the Atman, then I will have a correct understanding, correct knowledge of what is karma, what is akarma, what is activity, what is not activity. So that is the knowledge being spoken of here. Immersed in knowledge. The Sanskrit word in the text is jnana avasthita chetasaha. The chetasa is mind. Mind that is immersed in jnana or knowledge. Such a person, and yajnaya acharata karma, who does work as yajna. Now yajna, a simple way to describe yajna is a Vedic form of worship. And there is the ritualistic aspect to that, which often takes the form of making offerings to these celestial beings. The celestial beings were seen as the divine powers that were behind all the natural functions, such as rain, storm, water, fire. One of the differences between material sciences and a Vedic science, if you like, was that the Vedic sages saw the entire universe as alive, as filled with consciousness. Material sciences just kind of makes it like dead matter, just atoms and molecules. And then, of course, it's like even consciousness is seen as a byproduct of some brain activity. And so, I don't know, I find it very difficult to be hopeful about anything if you're just nothing but just atoms and molecules. Now, what is the meaning of all this? Does it even have meaning? It's just a random way, accidentally, suddenly this thing appeared, and we are trying to find meaning in what is essentially meaningless. That's one way to go. And some people have gone that way and tried to find meaning in, I don't know how they have found meaning, but people still are striving, struggling. The other way is the Vedic approach is it might look very material, but it's truly alive. They saw it scintillating with life, with consciousness. And therefore, even what seemed like just material, natural phenomenon, like rain and storm, they saw no, there is some conscious presence there who is controlling these things. And so yajna here, the ritual aspect of yajna would be that rain, we need heat. And so when the rain or heat came, they said, oh, there is some conscious presence which is giving these things to us that we need. And the form of gratitude would be that in return, we are getting this, our heart filled with gratitude, this is the offering we make. And so all of these Vedic rituals would be, and the idea was that fire was seen as a conveyor, or like a male person of those days, who will deliver these offerings to these heavenly beings. And so they made these offerings in a fire. It was believed that it went. But that's the ritual aspect of it. But there is the deeper aspect behind that. And that is just the sense of gratitude. That things comes to us from the world, and what am I doing to participate in that activity? No matter how much we might like to think of ourselves as, I'm a self-made person, I've done everything without anybody's help, don't believe any person who tries to say that. None of us is self-made. The human baby is the most helpless creature when it's born. We would not have survived if somebody had not taken care of us after we were born. And so, whatever we are today is a result of, clearly, enormous amount of care that those around us took, especially when we're babies. It's our parents or the elders in the family, and not just feeding us and so on, but also the love, the care, the friendship. Later on, as we grew up, when we went to school, our friends, the teachers, at so many different people at different levels have given us so much for us to survive physically. And the world has given us so much in terms of love, understanding, knowledge, for us to develop emotionally, intellectually. And so we have received a lot from the world. And then whatever we do, whatever we employ in the world through our knowledge, skill, and talent is a form of returning back to the larger life, universal life, what we have received. And so when we love someone, we have just received love from others, and then we pass on that love to someone else. We have received friendship from other people. In turn, we give that gift of friendship to others. So many people have helped us in our life. In return, we help other people. That is what participating in this yajna means. So that is this cosmic cycle of participation. It's not about the individualism is, oh, I work hard, I get it, I become wealthy, I don't care for other people. That's not the yajna approach. Yajna approach is what I deserve will come to me. So I'm just going to participate in this cycle. And if I stop, if I don't participate, then I will be the loser. I will suffer. So all pain and suffering that comes in our life, whether or not we like to think of it this way, is a refusal to participate in this cycle. It's because things are all the time coming to us, both gross and subtle, tangible and intangible, filling us. And through the work and relationships we form, we are returning it back to the universe. Now, if someone says, a selfish person says, I just want things to come to me, but I'm not going to give it anything. I'm just all going to keep it to myself. And the truth is that even if I want to do it, I cannot. So, if I don't give it willingly, nature will snatch it from me. Ultimately, of course, when I die, there's not a speck of dust I can carry with me. And so, what a reasonable person says is, whether I like it or not, it's going to go away. Things are just going to slip away from me. If I resist, I'm the one who is going to suffer. If I participate joyfully, then I can receive even more joy from others. So being a, a, a willing participant in this cosmic cycle, this cosmic yajna, that is what is wanted here. And that is what is meant by saying such a person does work as yajna, means, which, you see, that's the difference. And that's what, if we don't want to get caught up in karma, means that to ask myself, whatever I see as the work that I'm doing in life, how much of that work is initiated through my desire, through my ambition, through whatever other means? And if I can see everything I'm doing as just participating in this cosmic yajna, with the awareness that what is meant to come to me and nourish me will come to me. Nobody can stop it. I'm just going to do what is right and participate in this cosmic cycle. That is what yajna means. You see, in these Vedic times, the yajnas were a pretty big affair. It's not like a small little puja. Oftentimes, it's only the wealthy people who could afford to get all the ingredients to do these big yajnas. Oftentimes, it were kings or some really big people. They had the wealth to do the yajna. They didn't have the expertise to do the yajna. That's when they hired the priests to do so. So it is the priest who knew the appropriate mantras to be chanted. And the priest comes and does it. Now, what will the priest get attached to that whole ritual, the whole activity? There's no point in it, because all the benefit of that yajna will not go to the priest, will go to the person who is paying for it. And so the one who is paying for that yajna is called yajamana. And the priest is doing it on behalf of the person who is doing it. In fact, most of these worships in the beginning will say, who is the yajamana? And in fact, all of the worship that we do in the Vedanta Center, the host is the Holy Mother. So all of the pujas, that although you might see me here doing it, I'm just doing it. I'm just doing it because the one who is made it all possible is the Holy Mother. In all the Vedanta centers, all the pujas are done in Mother's name. So similarly, the priest doesn't get attached because the priest doesn't get the fruits of that worship. The fruit of the worship goes to the yajamana. The priest doesn't own anything. So there is no attachment, because all the things are owned by the one who is the host for that particular ceremony. That is how we can see that what we see as my knowledge, my talents, my work is, I don't own anything. Everything is owned by God. I am just a priest participating in this big cosmic worship that is going on. That would be an attitude that will help me not get attached to work and will truly free me. That's what this verse is saying. So one helpful way to look at it is to see ourselves as a steward or a trustee, not the owner. One of the oldest of Upanishads, called the Isha Upanishad, says, Kasya swid dhanam. To whom does anything belong? What does belonging even mean? And we saw that if we travel somewhere and book a room in a hotel, and depending on how long our stay is going to be, was 1 day, 2 days, 15 days, or 3 weeks, or whatever, and we can enjoy all the amenities provided in that room, whatever room we have booked in a hotel. But it will be foolish to say, I own this room. We don't own it. We, we can stay there only as long as we have been paid for it. But we don't own it. As soon as we check out, maybe that very day or next day, somebody else, the cleaner will come, clean the room, somebody else will come and occupy that. That is true about everything in life. Even what you say, this is my home, or this is my things. It may not be 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it could be for, say, 100 years, if we live for 100 years. But then, oftentimes, the house where we were staying, somebody else was staying there before. After our time there is done, somebody else will come and stay. It's not very different from a hotel room, even what we see as our home, except the duration may be a much longer than, say, a few days. So, if we keep that at the back of the mind, we say, do I really own anything? We might say, oh, all this energy that I have. Again, that energy. I had very little energy when I was a little baby. Maybe in sometime as a youth, I might have a lot of energy. Then as the body begins to fail, the energy goes away. Do I own the energy? Do I own the talents? Nothing. Just being aware of that I don't own anything. Now, that doesn't mean we be denial with the things that we have, but to say that everything that I have now really belongs to God. But God has entrusted all these things in my care, so I'll take good care of them. And I'm not simply speaking about the home and only material things. Even the people in our lives, our family, our friends, a devotee says, these are God's gift to me. I don't own them and they don't own me. We all belong to God. God gave them to me and God can take them away whenever God wants, because they belong to God anyway. Nobody belongs to me. So that way of thinking will prevent this sense of ownership, and then we won't get attached to anything. We will be able to love everyone and everything without getting attached. And one other thing to keep in mind is also this, that things happen in the world. It's my ego that appropriates it and says, I'm doing it. The example Ramakrishna gives in his conversations is that sometimes we know that when it rains, as it did early morning today, the water falls on the roof, and sometimes some of these, especially old buildings, they'll have these spouts by which the water on the roof comes down. And some of these old buildings in India I've seen, especially old structures, it won't be simply just a pipe with a spout coming out. It'll be usually have some face of an animal, and a lion face or something like that. And so, where is the water coming from? We might say, oh, it's coming from a lion's mouth. And if that lion is conscious, say, oh, so much water is coming from me. But really, it's just the water it's a rainwater. And so it's this rainwater which is falling in torrents, comes through this narrow little pipe, and the pipe thinks, oh, I'm the one giving water to these people. That would be ridiculous. Exactly in the same way, everything that people get in life, that's this rainwater, that's God's grace that is coming. Now, if that thing gets kind of sent through this pipe, and I become an instrument through which somebody gets helped, it's actually God helping them. I'm not doing anything. If I feel I'm doing something, then that's my ego. That's like that lion's face saying, I'm giving water. And so we don't own anything, we can't do anything. This awareness that God is the doer. If anything, we are only instruments. The more we are able to keep this at the back, you don't have to go on telling this to anybody. If they don't know the Gita, they'll think, what's wrong with you? Why are you saying things like that? But this is just to keep at the back of the mind. That's the secret to happiness. If we don't want pain and sorrow and suffering in life, it's not that complicated. It's just that we forget this very often. This is plain common sense, really. There's nothing, we don't even need the Gita to know this. If we just kind of observe and think calmly, this all appears just plain common sense. But we have been conditioned to think in terms of me, mine, I have to do this, I have done that. This is to get out of that old ways of thinking, that's the difficult part. Learning something new is very easy. Unlearning the old stuff, that is the difficult part. And so that is something that's to be kept in mind. So this word says, the entire karma is dissolved for one who is free from attachment, whose mind is immersed in knowledge, and who does work as yajna. So how can we simply dissolve karma without it yielding any fruit? And that is discussed in the next verse, which will be the last one we'll do today. Brahmarpanam brahmahavihi brahmagnau brahmana hutam brahmaiva tena gantavyam brahma karma samadhina. And this verse simply means the spoon is Brahman, the ghee is Brahman, and is offered by Brahman in the fire of Brahman. One who is immersed in the activity which is Brahman attains the result which is Brahman. So, Brahman is this infinite reality. It's not the name of a person, as you know well now. So, this Vedic ceremony that I described earlier, which primarily involved fire and oftentimes offering of ghee mostly, and then putting that ghee into that fire required a big spoon, usually a wooden spoon, kind of a ladle. And so they put this in Sanskrit, they call it sruk and sru. So they'll put it in that ghee and then put it in the fire. Put it in the ghee, put it in the fire. So keeping that ritual in the mind, what would a knowledgeable person say? Who would look at this, either you can say, oh, I'm doing this big sacrifice for this purpose. This is the ghee I'm taking. This is what I'm putting. These are the mantras I'm chanting. That's a normal way to look at it. But a deeper way to look at it is, you pick up this particular spoon through which I'm putting ghee. This is nothing but the ultimate reality. I'm just putting this. The ghee itself is also divine. The fire in which it is being put is divine. This action of offering that thing in fire is divine. The one who is offering it is also divine. It's just divine interacting with the divine. Now, does that mean I'm not able to see the differences? Of course. The spoon is different from the ghee is different from the fire is different from the person who is putting it. So even when you are seeing the differences, can you see that they are really one? It's like saying, even when you are seeing the snake, on that rope snake analogy, even when you are seeing the snake, can you say, it looks like snake, but it's actually the rope? So the snake is an appearance, but the reality is the rope. So the spoon is an appearance, the reality is Brahman. The ghee is an appearance, the reality is Brahman. The fire is an appearance, the reality is Brahman. The one who is putting it is this body, which is holding it and putting it, is an appearance, the reality is Brahman. In other words, the divine alone exists. Now, this is then with regard to this specific Vedic ritual. But essentially, what is that ritual? That there is some conscious being who is doing something. There is certain instrument being used to do that, interacting with another one object, and a certain task is being accomplished. Everything we do in life, we don't call it a Vedic ritual, but essentially there is the subject, there is the object, there is the instrument, and a certain activity, when a subject interacts with the object with the help of the instrument, is what any kind of action is. So no matter what activity I'm engaged in life, if I see that the doer, the instrument, the object where the action occurs, and the action itself, that's only an appearance. The reality is Brahman. If I can do that, then it says such a person attains the result, even the result is Brahman. So being Brahman and seeing Brahman, being divine and seeing everything as filled with divine, it's a very opposite picture than a materialistic view on life. It's not just atoms and molecules. I'm not just this body and mind. There is a deeper truth in my heart. I am that divine being, and everything I see is also divine. If we can live that way, say goodbye to all pain and sorrow, goodbye to all anxiety, goodbye to stress and worry, nothing will come. It's our failure to see the presence of divine inside and outside that is at the root of all difficulties in life. And so this is a very, very powerful verse. Although we do it before meals here, and so sometimes people think it has got to do only with food. It's much more encompassing with everything, not just the process of eating, of course. There is the one who is eating, there is the food, the action of eating, everything is filled with divine. Even if we keep this somewhere in the corner of our heart, every time we sit before a meal, there is an element of sacredness, whether you're having breakfast, lunch, or dinner, to look at it and say, this is divine. This process of putting it inside is divine. The one who is eating is divine. Then it becomes something much more than simply, oh, I'm hungry, I'm just going to eat something. Doesn't help. So we will stop here now. If you have any thoughts, ideas, questions. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Swamiji, as you said, I think that the last verse that you said, the Brahmarpanam, that I think is probably the secret of Karma Yoga, probably. Because the reason why I'm asking is that, so there are two things. One is, awareness, and the other thing is activity. And what we find in our lives is that if we are really very aware of something, then we become pretty quiet, both mentally and physically, and you can't do much in that state. And then when you get into activity, you often tend to lose self-awareness because you're just active. And in fact, I think even somebody actually asked Holy Mother that, Mother, are you always aware of who you are? And she said, no. No, but I can recall at any time I want to. Mm-hmm. So that's what she said. So it seems like this awareness and activity, they don't mix, actually. And
yeah, generally, in a state of ignorance, this might seem not to mix, but that's the challenge before us. That even when I'm doing work, if I can do it with awareness, this whole idea about mindfulness is exactly that. That even when I'm doing it, if I'm aware of the fact that I'm doing it, then there is awareness. It's not just, when you say there is no awareness, doesn't mean that you don't know what's happening. I mean, sometimes people, if there is a certain activity you have done, if there is certain activity you have done for a long time, then things get mechanical. And then that time maybe people are not aware of, usually not aware, they are really aware of something else. It's like I'm brushing my teeth. But brushing my teeth, I don't think needs my full attention. So while I'm brushing my teeth, I'm thinking about, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that. So awareness is not absent. It's just that I'm not aware of the activity that I'm doing. You see, awareness totally goes away, if at all, is it never really totally goes away, but at least in a relative sense, if I fall unconscious, then of course, then I can't do any activity. So if I'm doing activity, there is some awareness somewhere. But usually, only a part of me will be aware that I'm brushing my teeth. Most of my awareness will be my plan for the rest of the day. So it's not that awareness is absent. What you can say is awareness of me as the divine being doing this, that awareness won't be there. And so being a witness really means being aware of who you are and being aware of things around you, even objects around you. So even seeing things, that's an activity, but I can do it with awareness. So I understand the sense in which you are saying the two don't go. What you probably mean is that remembering that everything is divine is not possible when you are engaged in work. Because otherwise, a lot of work needs so much concentration. You cannot do that work unless you're aware of what you're doing.
Maharaj, I think
When you say no awareness of what?
if one is concentrating, one is not aware of oneself. One loses awareness. I mean, and when one is aware, then one can't do anything. One is the mind and body shut down completely.
No. Awareness, when you say it's awareness of something, right? When you say when you are awareness, your body shuts down, means what are you aware of that time?
I'm just aware of myself.
What do you mean myself? Who is that self?
When I have no thoughts and my body is inactive.
No, then you are fallen unconscious. You
But I'm awake also.
then you are in samadhi. If you are in samadhi, of course, no action is possible. But if you are not in samadhi, then you are aware of something. So only if one is in nirvikalpa samadhi, then one cannot do anything. Then, because there is no vikalpa, there is no difference at all. But other than that, all that you can say is, I don't have the awareness I'm divine, but I'm aware of a lot of other things that are going on. Because only in a state of samadhi, there is no activity possible. Think about it, yeah.
Swamiji. Swamiji, you've taught that what drives karma is doership and experiencing, and it feels there's a path to giving up doership by realizing I am just an instrument. But what is the path to giving up experiencing? How do we practice not experiencing?
No, experiencing is fine. I don't think experiencing itself is a problem. But to look upon this as my experience is a problem. I mean, if you are seeing something, if you are aware of something, of course we are experiencing it. So it's like if I look out of the window and see something, or if I see someone says, "Oh, I have a headache," and I'm seeing that person say, "I have a headache," and when I have a headache, my experience is different from when I hear someone else is having a headache. And what that means is I'm able to objectify the person who has a headache, but I'm not able to objectify my own head when it has a headache. Does that make sense? And so experiencing itself is not a problem, but owning up that experience as me or mine, that's a problem. Yeah.
Maharaj, I have two questions. When the karma is dissolved, when we are free of attachment, so doer is having sense of I, and this is called akarma. Is that correct?
Say that again.
The karma is dissolved means when doer is free of attachment. The doer is free of attachment.
Yes.
Is that karma called akarma?
Yeah, that means that karma is, that activity is not activity.
Okay. So sometimes
Which also means the doer is not a doer. If it's not activity, then the doer is not a doer. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes akarma, sometimes we feel akarma is something unnecessary, something I did unnecessary. That means of no use or something.
No, if you have done it, then it's already activity. It may be useless, but it is still an activity.
Okay. Next question is, just like happiness or unhappiness, success and failure, that happens in the mind. Is it possible to compare two season changes, hot and cold?
Yeah, all pairs of opposites. We just have to acknowledge them. Heat is different from cold, success is different from failure, and we will react to it. But so long as that reaction doesn't overwhelm me to the point that I'm not able to see what is right and what is not right.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Namaskar, Maharaj. My question is about the Brahma Arpanam, where every activity was sort of broken down to everything is divine, right? So then the thoughts and the emotions that occur when it's defined along that way, does that also mean that it is divine? I mean, the Vedantic view would be that it is not. It is not the Atman.
Yes, I mean, it's like this. The Atman alone exists.
Right.
So whatever you're saying, whether it's emotion, feeling, whatever you're saying, is really the Atman. It's like you could see a snake, but it is really the rope. And so just being aware of that, no matter what I see and in what form and in what color and with what name, ultimately it's all divine.
Yeah. Because
And again, it's not just a saying it, it's not just an intellectual formulation. If I can truly remain immersed in that knowledge, then I will reach, as it says, such a person will reach the divine. Yeah.
so I guess if it's half baked in my mind, then I can, the lazy way to think about it is that, any thought that comes into my mind, that is divine. But that's not how we should be thinking about it in day to day.
If we cheat, then in our thinking, there is I don't know how best to express it. In Bengali, there is a phrase that says theft. What they gets translated to English as theft in the chamber of the mind. Bhaber ghore churi. In Bengali, they call it. Essentially, if I use a certain teaching for my own convenience and not in the way it was intended to be, then I am the loser. So yes, I mean, all of these teachings, if, intentionally or not, sometimes self-deception can occur a lot in spiritual life. So if we don't digest these teachings well, we might apply it in a wrong place at the wrong time. And then sometimes we might recognize that unless someone corrects us or through our own bitter, painful experience, we're like, no, that is probably not the right way to think. Yeah. So, but it's good to remember, this is not simply an intellectual formulation, that this is how things are, and we can make effort to see it that way. Our effort may not succeed in the first attempt. In the beginning, it will be very filled with failures. We might fail 1,000,000 times while trying to see everything is filled with Brahman. But if I don't give up, if I persist, acknowledge when we fail, yes, I have failed, but keep on trying, then gradually that imperfections will become less and less and less. That's the idea. So we will stop here today and begin with verse 24. Jananim Saratam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhur Muhu.